Hey everyone, today I'm excited as I'm diving into a video called Notion Failed You. Why I'm excited about this? Well, I loved using Notion in the past. It was the first tool that allowed you creating complex databases with cross-connecting information with no code solution and nothing complicated. Out of the box, you were able to make great knowledge bases. However, over the time with the release of Rome Research and then Obsidian and the backlinking and all these things, more and more solutions became more sophisticated when it came to personal knowledge management. So Notion really went down the road of project management. Something we never believed at the paperless movement, that Notion is for proper project management. And that's a big claim. And now I'm curious what Alex and Andrea from Efficient App has to share about Notion, because I saw a few reviews from them and I really like their no BS app reviews. So let's roll the video and let's see what they have to share about Notion.
You were told that Notion's the solution to everything, but you were sold a lie.
Well, I could have told you that. I never believed this, that Notion is the solution to everything, because no app out there is the solution to absolutely everything, especially when it comes to business. But let's see.
On the surface, Notion looks like the all-in-one answer to run everything in your business. You have to-do lists, project management, CRMs, databases, team wikis, notes, and now even calendar and email.
Hold on.
This is already the big issue. They try to be it all. And I remember talking in an interview to August Bradley back then, who is also a dedicated user of Notion. When I said Notion not even has recurring tasks. And the answer was, well, you can just uncheck the boxes. All right, okay. And then task dependencies and all these things. This was always crazy when it came to project management in Notion. It was a knowledge management system, and I always used it as this in the past. I know, for example, Paperlike, they run on Notion, and there are businesses that works, okay? But is it the best solution? I'm not sure. That's why we used in the past ClickUp and Notion in combination, and eventually went everything into ClickUp. Also, and there we go, ClickUp is not the solution for everything. That's what they claim too, right? Because when it comes to knowledge management, it is not as good as Notion, but it is good enough for our specific business needs. And that's what you have to figure out. So let's see what Alex has to share here.
This is so messed up, Andra.
Come play with us, Alex.
Okay, we're going to come back to the last two because Notion is not telling you the full story here.
I go on YouTube, I go on TikTok. There are thousands and thousands of tutorials of people explaining how to use Notion without going crazy.
After pouring
Yeah, and it is so easy to sell templates for Notion. And then you have to study the template in order to understand it. And then Notion evolves and the template breaks and you have to download a new template. And you are depending on these templates in order to get an understanding. So in fact, you're restricting yourself by getting a template. Therefore, you have an encapsulated app. So you're losing flexibility. So you really have to understand Notion in order to properly use it. Otherwise, it's useless for you. And how do we do that? By getting the tool agnostic workflows and concepts in order. That's what we teach in the paperless movement, the ICOR methodology. It's tool agnostic. That's why Paco, our co-founder, and I are never afraid to move on from one tool to the other, because all we move on is just our concepts and workflows that we had in the tool. So that makes it so easy to not only set up new tools the way we need them for our business, but also to figure out if other tools work better for our use cases than our current ones. And that's what we did with Notion and moved to ClickUp. Let's keep going.
hours into creating the perfect Notion system, the more it feels like you can't leave. And then
Yeah, exactly. The more hours you put in. I remember when Notion came out first, I was so excited that I put in 2 weeks building up an amazing productivity project management system that I thought now everything will run on this thing. In our brains, everything makes sense when we think, oh, and let's add this bell and let's use this whistle because it can do it all this. And then you go down the rabbit holes on YouTube, and this makes it worse because you keep procrastinating your whole work. 2 weeks later, I put it then into work and I realized, man, I added too much friction to my own system. I have to make this checkbox. I have to fill out this custom field. It was a mess. And that was back in 2018. And that's where I realized it's not the tool. It's not something that we make up our own mind. We have to realize what we really need out of these tools in order to make them work for us. And here we are, the video that tells you the same. So high five, Andra and Alex, are ready for these things.
And again, why would you want to leave? Because Notion is awesome, right?
You know what I mean? Have you ever organized something to perfection because it gave you something productive to do, but then when it was all said and done, it was not actually functional in the way that you need it to be so that you...
Yeah, exactly. That's exactly what I said, right? It is the thing. You put in so much work. It looks also fancy. And then you see these highly productive people on YouTube who never run a business before. And the moment they get a team, they start to crumble and go to social media and start, oh my God, I cannot work anymore. It's so overwhelming. Or they shut down the whole business because they've been productive as an individual, as a creator, but they never knew what it means to be a busy professional. Things start to crumble. That's where you really see that things are not working the moment you try to scale your business, when you scale your work. And that's where highly successful, busy professionals come to the paperless movement because they hit a ceiling, because they just did more about what they did before without ever optimizing the workflows they were doing. And that's the thing. You can keep procrastinating and tinkering with your system and procrastinating, building up these systems and notions, but never get anything done that really matters.
Feel like you can keep up with it all?
Yeah, we need to talk. There are whole videos about the psychology behind Notion and why it feels so addictive.
This is kind of overkill. I also have an extra desk next to me that has a treadmill underneath it.
This tool has tapped into a deep insecurity about our productivity, and it's marketed itself as the solution.
Notion.
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 But in reality,
See, I'm not turning up here. Also, I talked about Notion, but never in a way that was the holy grail of productivity, because it's not. It's the combination of the right tools.
this app has overreached way beyond what it's actually good at.
Notion definitely lied to you.
We're going to cover every single thing that Notion is surprisingly bad at and what software you should use instead.
Now I'm curious, what software else we should use.
But first, let's start with what Notion actually does really well, and it's the thing that probably drew you to it in the first place. It's Notion's ability to organize everything in one place. You can capture...
Yeah, that's what we all wanted. That's what we all want, right? The single source of truth, the ultimate single source of truth, where you just have to open one app and everything is there at a glance. But reality is unfortunately not as easy as that.
Capture notes, ideas, processes, and project plans all in a shared space that your team can access and add to. It's way better than something like Google Docs because it does give you more structure. For example, you have pages, subpages, and you also have databases. So if you're using Notion for a team wiki or a knowledge base, Notion is perfect for that. However, does that mean that we recommend it? No.
No, me neither.
Don't get crazy now. Because Notion doesn't want you to
I'm actually getting excited. No worries.
just use it as a team wiki or for notes. They want you to use it for everything.
This Notion software is made from Lego pieces that people can tinker and modify.
There was just one problem.
It keeps falling apart.
It's nearly impossible not to get tempted to start building other features and dashboards as you go. So
Exactly.
we actually recommend Slight. It's what we use ourselves because all they're trying to be is a great knowledge base, which keeps our team from getting sidetracked.
That's great. Slide is also, Paco is using this in his marketing business with 70 people as the knowledge base there. So it's really great to have a dedicated tool for very specific features. Then you can assume that this tool does this specific thing the best they can. Todoist is another example, right? In the past, it has been a proper task manager. Now they're going down the project management road and even the planner road. And that's really concerned whenever we see shifts in a company like this that was always dedicated to something and now suddenly wants to become the one tool for everything.
So now let's talk about the 5 things you should absolutely not be using Notion for, starting with expense management. Alex and I saw a video of Thomas Frank doing this, and we had to literally pick up our jaw off the floor.
Hi there. My name's Thomas Frank, and my hobbies include fiscal responsibility and also which is why I have built an entire recurring expense tracker in Notion that I'm going to teach you how to build today. Now, if I go
Yeah, exactly my expression as well when I saw that.
into this, we can actually see this is a formula.
Why on earth would someone willingly choose to build an expense management tool when there are free alternatives out there?
Pretty sure if Thomas Frank saw this, he'd have a stroke.
We're not enemies. Don't post that anywhere. Actual expense management tools give you unlimited virtual cards that you can put on file with different vendors. You set budgets for those cards, forward your receipts, and your transactions are automatically reconciled within your accounting software.
You see, the issue is really the overlaps of these YouTube videos where they either target students and then they see, oh, all the money is at the business professionals. Let's go there as well. And they have no clue what it means to run a big business or to be a project manager with high stakes and millions of budgets that you have to handle and all these things, or having thousands of invoices per month. You know, that's not something you have to handle there. And it's like unchecking the checkbox in Notion. It's the same thing. Yes, you can build everything. As soon you have a database, you can do that. But even then, the other databases make it easier than that. But therefore, you have an understanding. So obviously, you're going to dedicated tools in order to use this. I'm not sure how many accountants love to be in Notion and do expense management there.
And you can even pull out a bunch of spending insights. And did I mention that this is all automated?
Yeah.
Automated. Bill Spend and Expense is the expense management tool we use here in the US. And if you're outside of the US,
well, we are not using that, obviously, as we're in Europe.
You want to take a look at something like Airwallex. They make money on the interchange when you make a purchase, so the software is completely free for you to use. Well, actually, I lied. It's better than free because you get cashback rewards for using these cards, somewhere between 1 and 1.5%. So consider yourself paid to not use Notion for this purpose.
Everybody, I'm in love with Bill. It's a financial platform.
Well, obviously, as we have a lot more employees and a lot more complex transactions going on at the paperless movement and the surrounding businesses, we need even more sophisticated tools than just the credit cards that gives you some reporting things, because N26, for example, in Germany has this as well. So from private use cases, I'm using this to manage my private budgets and things like that. But in a business, you're using more sophisticated tools. So in Spain, where our company is based, there we use Holded. It's an accounting software. And then Stripe is connected to that. And we have a dedicated credit cards with Spanish banks and things like that. So there's more going on the moment you have to scale the business again, because these cards are great if you're an individual and do these things. But the moment you have to run a bigger team or bigger business, you have to look elsewhere.
Plus, you get to save dozens of hours by not building an expense management tool or manually entering in every purchase into Notion. This is just a really bad idea for any business owner. So next, let's talk about using
manually entering in all the expenses. It's unbelievable. If I just think about, we have about $3,000 expenses just on software alone per month. So it's enough to just hand in all the invoices and all the things from these tools to our accountants so they will do the account management. No way that I would add this into a Notion database.
Using Notion for task and project management and why it's a horrible idea.
Yeah, thank you. Thank you, Andra. I am curious now if what I said in the beginning becomes now reality there.
And heads up, downloading a pre-made project management Notion template is not the solution here either.
Exactly, as I told you. You have to study the template, and then it's a template that is made by a person that has a specific use case. And then let's see if this actually is exactly your use case as well. Again, the moment you put volume to the equation, things will become obvious.
In doing research for this video, we reviewed dozens of ways that people were using Notion for project management, and we found that everyone had their own little twist on it. And of course, because there is no golden rule when it comes to using Notion for project management, they just give you a blank slate and building blocks. But that's where the problem lies. By expecting you to put everything together, you need to now understand exactly how the infrastructure of Notion is set up. For example, what are databases and how do they relate to one another? How does the hierarchy of information like parent-child relationships function? What are the strengths and weaknesses of each custom field, and how will they impact the type of reporting that you'll one day want to get out of Notion? What kind of automations are possible? And onwards and onwards and onwards.
Yeah, exactly. And I love the eyes there. And the thing is really, you might have time to study this if you're a solopreneur or if you're a student, right? And you have the time to do all this work. However, if you're a busy professional and you want to bring a team into the tool as well, you have not only to internalize this yourself, but train the whole team on this as well. All right. So if you don't get the point about how these things work in Notion, you will never get the point across to all the other people. And that's why things like ClickUp or Asana, these are tools that are made. Well, ClickUp is also overkill. Let's say Asana, that's the most easy to access project management tool that you can easily roll out to a team. Well, in fact, when I was working big corporate with 300,000 employees, I was climbing the ladder leading 2 IT teams. And there I rolled out Asana for more than 1,000 people working parallel. So you cannot do this if you have no clue about the business process behind, and then make it easy for everybody to understand how to use the tool. Let's try to do this with Notion, especially as everybody can make their own setups and things like that. Things go crazy. You have to have limitations to make it easy for everybody to use. The Apple approach, as I keep saying, because Apple doesn't provide you all the fancy features that you have, for example, on Android, but it works out of the box. Even my 88-year-old father-in-law is able to use an iPad and an iPhone without any issues because it is so intuitive. And that's what's missing in Notion. Yes, it feels intuitive that you can create pages and all the things. But if you have no idea what happens in the back end and how everything is cross-connected, well, that's where you fall behind. And the moment you have a team, things become worse.
YouTubers will spend hours trying to convince you that this stuff is not complicated. Insert Jeff Sue.
Clicking
Okay, I'm curious now.
into a milestone, and this is level 3, I see only tasks attached to this specific milestone here on the right, and adding a task here automatically links this task to this specific milestone. Don't
Okay. Try to explain this to a 5-year-old, That's the thing. If you have a team, not everybody is committed to productivity and likes to tinker with the tools. They just want to get work done. The more friction you put to the team, the more frustration you will create.
worry, it's actually simpler than it seems.
But it is complicated. And that's why using a Notion template is not the solution either. The templates that you see here on YouTube are sold by creators, not professional engineers who actually understand how database infrastructure works,
Exactly.
nor are they product people. So even with the best Notion template, you're not getting the best tool. You're just getting a tool. But they've built it specifically for their needs, not yours.
I wish we had a Notion template for your hair.
I think I'm dying.
I don't have this issue.
But let's just say you do end up learning the system of Notion and you spend 40, 60, 100 hours building out your perfect system. The reality is your business productivity is still at zero. All you've had is perceived productivity. But
Exactly.
because of the IKEA effect, where you'll psychologically place a higher value on something that you've partially created yourself, it feels like you've made progress.
And this is exactly what happens with Notion. You spend hours building your perfect template, the ultra-optimized database to track your to-dos, your notes, every aspect of your life. And since you built it with your own hands, you attribute an exponentially higher value to it. And this actually makes you unproductive?
Yeah.
So let's compare.
It's procrastination. It is being busy with work about work. And that's not even efficient work, as you end up the day still being confused what you need to do. You didn't think about your goals, how to achieve them, all these things that we teach in ICOR, that you just run on autopilot in order to make progress with your business and your business goals and completing the projects and the task. And by realizing this, it doesn't matter what tool you use. You can even use a piece of paper in order to achieve this once you have the clarity about your goals. It doesn't matter what tool you use. The only difference is using tools and going digital will make you more efficient in managing all these things that you set up. But there you have to understand in the first place what it is that you actually want to achieve and how to break it down in order to achieve it.
This experience with a purpose-built solution. There are a ton of task and project management tools that have entire dedicated teams working on them. They have already thought through the features that a business needs for scale, like version control, activity tracking, milestones, task dependencies, workload capacity planning, daily planning, automations, and more. Just think about it. These feature decisions are made by entire teams, built over the course of years, all working together on the sole focus of making the best project management tool. All of that versus the Notion database that you painstakingly set up over a couple of weekends.
Yeah, that's exactly it. That's what I kept saying for years when people said, well, ClickUp versus Notion. There is no, you cannot even compare it. You know, it's not a project management tool. That's what it is. It's not a project management tool.
I'm starting in Notion, which I'm showing you here on my fancy display. I love how Notion makes it really simple.
5 billion years later.
Our recommended project management tool is perfect for small to medium-sized teams because their onboarding and software is incredibly well-structured. And that tool is Motion. It can auto-schedule tasks and even entire projects on your calendar and your team's calendar, all with a few clicks. It will even warn you if you're not able to hit a deadline, and if you change that deadline for the project, it will automatically update every task deadline for your entire team.
Yeah, I'm not sure if Motion is the solution either. So maybe they made a lot of progress. So curious to dive into this tool again to have a second look. But what we don't like is adding action like tasks on the calendar. In a calendar, there should be your commitments that you have to do for meetings, events, things that you cannot really change. And then the time in between, you should fill up with the tasks that you planned out throughout the week. And those will show up either in your project management tool or in your planner tool if you're connected to something like Sansama in order to see it. And there's a sequential order of these tasks to work through. As soon as it appears on your calendar, and especially if you have like speedies, as we call them, tasks that take less than 15 minutes, you keep rearranging and reorganizing your calendar. And I don't know if Motion keeps moving things forward and backwards. Maybe I missed the point here. And be sure I will check out Motion with a second look again, because it's been, 3 years I checked out Motion. So let's see.
When you start using Motion, you have the freedom and the flexibility that you're craving, but you're guided on setting up your workspaces, mapping out your processes, using their workflow templates, and adding in custom fields for the data that's most important to you. And just like that, you can actually get to work. It's mind-blowing. And notice how I didn't have to once mention the word databases when explaining to you how to use Motion. Very mindful, very respectful, and very demure.
But with the drama ensuing over who was ultimately the most mindful, and the question now remains as to who may be the most demure after all.
The third area you should absolutely not be using Notion for is your CRM. Notion lacks fundamental features that actually make a CRM, well, a good CRM. A good CRM does a few things. First, it acts as a contact book. Secondly, it ingests all of your communication into one central hub. It also lets you track interactions like phone calls and add notes to your different contact records. And finally, it gives you actionable insights like when you need to contact somebody because X amount of time has passed since you last spoke with them. Notion.
Yeah, so that's exactly the point. Notion is not doing that because it's just a database. And if you follow me on this channel, then you saw that I connected ActiveCampaign, the CRM that we are using, and the email marketing tool that we are using at the Paperless Movement, with ClickUp. And there I also mentioned here, now you could use ClickUp like CRM. And if you go to these websites from these tools, they claim they can do it all. Monday says it, ClickUp says it, Notion says it, that they are CRM tools. Yes, you can make all these fancy custom fields and things like that. And in fact, something you haven't seen yet, and I will come to the channel soon, is that we are using Airtable as our CRM. And here now you could say, well, that's similar to Notion. Yeah, it is, but it goes way beyond of email history and things like that we are tracking. And therefore, Airtable is consolidating all the information in one place as a single source of truth for this person from all the other places like ActiveCampaign, tickets from our ClickUp, the updates from the membership, even the image and things like that. So we have really one card that has it all. But if you want to need more details, for example, about email activity, then we have one click to go to the relevant active campaign entry and then see the progress there and things like that. So this is, again, something you not tinker around if you want to just launch a business, and therefore you should use something that is a dedicated CRM and stay in there. We could perfectly have used also ActiveCampaign and build it out. In fact, that's what we did the years before. We went to Airtable and flipped things around that the Airtable becomes now the single source of truth. But I'm curious now what Andrea has to share about the CRM that they're recommending.
On the other hand, lacks the last few features entirely. Notion does not ingest your emails automatically. Therefore, you're not going to know when you last interacted with someone. And you also miss out on...
And that's also the issue with Airtable. For example, things like Coda, there again, you're very flexible and there you can ingest all these things and interconnect databases. Man, but do you want to do this if you're a busy professional working 10, 13 hours a day and then you think about something like this? Again, without a strategy that you have behind why you're doing these changes and making things more complex than they already are, don't do it. Just use something out of the box, and I'm sure Andrea will share something there.
Important information, like if a lead is hot or warm based on how many times they've opened up your emails. Yeah. And please, I don't want anybody in the comments saying you can build an integration with this. I see you. That is not scalable if you actually are running a business with a team. I'm just going to channel the person I just argued with on Reddit.
Respect my authority!
Just take a look at...
Love it.
Folk, for example, which is a super simple CRM that...
Folk is actually something I just recently made a note about that I want to dive deeper and check out, because I really think this looks really good because it integrates with all the other platforms that are going beyond email management. It's also email enrichment and things like that. So that's obviously something you cannot build with tools like Airtable and things like that. And that's not why we are using this. It's rather tracking the status once they are inside our bubble. But there needs to be something where we have all the details from the outside as well. But then once you have some specific fields, like, for example, the LinkedIn profile, and Folk provides this automatically, then you can use something like Zapier to bring it back into the single source of truth, in our case, Airtable, if it is even needed there. Because, again, that's not something I want to promote. It's just something that I share behind the scenes, because we are always on the edge where we try to really squeeze out the last efficiency drop that we get out of our productivity system that's already running on autopilot and at high speed.
We recommend to anybody that's even remotely considering using Notion. You and your team can easily adopt Folk in an afternoon. It's super simple to set up and use. It comes with this handy Chrome extension. So with one button, you can click to add contacts to your CRM from LinkedIn, for example. And once you're inside Folk, it will track your email threads and you can add notes and even use it to send emails. But we still have not covered the worst of it, because so far, all of these features are simply not as good as the alternative solutions that are out there. But now we come to Notion Calendar and Notion Mail.
Oh, now I'm curious, because I don't believe in this at all.
These massive additions to the software are not only bad alternatives, but Notion has not been entirely honest with you about what the software actually is. Yeah. Alex, do you want to take this one?
Okay, Alex, let's go.
Yes, thank you. So there's been a lot of buzz about Notion Calendar and Notion Mail, but what if I told you that Notion didn't actually build either of them? Notion users had been asking for a calendar app for a while, so in 2022, Notion went out and acquired Cron. It was a minimal and modern calendar app. Because they're separate tools, this actually made a lot of Notion users frustrated.
It's a very common thing to do. ClickUp, for example, keeps buying other companies, small startups and things like that, and just ingest them into their tools. The downside is they need to make it work somehow, and that's why ClickUp always feels buggy or has glitches there, compared to something like Asana, where it takes a lot longer until you get a new feature. But once they launch it, it's really well thought out and integrated. Again, it's the Apple approach versus the Android approach, as I always say. And here they're trying now the same thing.
Because they wanted an all-in-one app. That is what Notion is.
Sounds great on paper, right? The problem is that they're not the best note-taking app, they're not the best database app, they're not the best calendar app, journaling app.
Exactly.
I would maybe be okay with this if they at least had the ability to embed Notion Calendar into the Notion app, but they don't.
So to try to make it an all-in-one tool, Notion started allowing you to be able to embed cron, Notion Calendar, into the homepage of your Notion environment.
Wow.
But the problem is it doesn't work on the Notion desktop app. It only works on the browser, Chromium-based browsers. So it's not that Notion Calendar is bad. Cron wasn't bad. It's just that it's just a calendar. And by adding these Notion database items, they're trying to make it a daily planner. It's not a daily planner. It's a workaround. And people are noticing.
What are we going to do with cron? You know, Notion's got this amazing app as it is. What are we going to do with cron? We're going to reskin it 2 years later and act like it's a big deal.
So
that was exactly my reaction. Dimitri, I love this guy.
Business owner that is looking for a daily planner, you're better off just using a daily planner. And there's so many great alternatives out there. For example, Motion, which we talked about earlier, has full project management and calendar at the core. And they've built deep AI auto scheduling. So if you don't get to your tasks for the day, it will automatically shift those forward. For Notion to do
it's something we hate. All right. I don't want to have my tasks moving around, because if you know what you need to do, you have a strategy and a plan why you need to do these things. And we differentiate between shallow work and deep work. The shallow work is an infinite tasks list, and your calendar day is always finite. So this means I can take the whole day just doing shallow work and not getting anything done that has an impact in my business. That's why we have to focus on our highlight of the day, as we call it, which is a deep work task that you want to get done in order to feel fulfilled, that you move towards your goals. And then you do all your shallow work in a specific time block as much as you can do, because otherwise you end up just doing shallow work the whole day. If I put shallow work in there, and if I see something here, like check emails is a routine, as we call them, right? So we have a morning routine, an afternoon routine, and you can even have an evening routine. Although I'm not doing that. And in these routines, you do things like check emails, all right? So in the morning, I have a morning routine where I check my emails just for urgent emails and ignore the rest. And then in the afternoon, in my shallow work timeline, and I have the afternoon routine, there I process the emails. That's where I work on the emails. I don't want to spend my energy on doing this, like, you know, in the morning, write blog posts. That's a high energy task versus things like check email. But I don't want to move these things automatically around, because it would mess up my whole planning that I have done throughout the week. That's if you really need a dedicated planner app. That's why we're using Sansama, for example. But then again, they try to make it be also a task manager. There we say, don't use tasks in Asana. Focus on the planning part of Sansama, because that's what they're best at. Having things like Motion, and that's the thing where I never was a fan of Motion. What they promote, that AI is moving things around for me, that's exactly what I don't want to have.
Something like this, it's impossible unless they totally rebuilt it from the ground up and actually truly made calendar at the core of Notion. It's not going to happen.
Yeah.
Or if you want something without the AI, Sansama is a great daily planner alternative.
Yeah, see, that's the one that I mentioned. And there's even AI in there.
That actually integrates with Notion as well, but it was built for project management. So if you want your Notion database tasks to show up.
See on top, that's why I couldn't live without Sansama. For example, Paco running 4 businesses in parallel using 3 different project management tools, ClickUp, Linear, and I always forget the third one. Sorry about that. He needs to get this information in here. Plus Todoist, where he has hundreds of speedies per week that he has to handle. So therefore, Todoist is integrated there as well. You can have then emails as well. So for example, I used Sansama to highlight specific customer support emails that I need to plan out as they need to take more time or things like that. And that's where Sansama becomes the central hub of all your actions and and you see them compared to your calendar, and then you can plan them out. And if we go backwards quickly, there you see, for example, here, that's exactly why we love Sansama. And what I mentioned earlier is the sequential order of tasks that I have to do on that day. This animation is dragging the task onto the calendar, and that's something we don't do. I was working in big corporate and people kept sending me invites to random meetings and so on, things like that. How were I able to block this out? Well, by making bigger blocks and say, that's my deep work block, that's my shadow work block. Don't interrupt me in this time. They weren't able to send anything else there. But the moment you do this, you keep managing your calendar because a meeting will take longer. Then you have to rearrange all these things. So that's why I don't believe this. Unexpected events always happen. And again, I'm talking about busy professionals where we have hectic days, unexpected events happen and things like that. This is what I'm talking about. I'm not talking about the student who needs to think about, okay, when do I study? And then I have school and things like that. And I can make these choices. I made my PhD. I studied physics, studied biology. I was a long-term student. So don't go in the comments and tell me I have no idea what it means to study. I know exactly what it means.
Is a great daily planner alternative that actually integrates with Notion as well, but it was built for project management. So if you want your Notion database tasks to show up on your calendar, you're better off using Sansama than Notion Calendar. Oh, and then at the Make with Notion Summit, don't even get me started on this, they announced Notion Mal.
Yeah.
Not beautiful. It's definitely not creative. Definitely not creative. I'm proud to introduce the newest Notion product, Notion Mail.
Yes, what? I'm curious if, the CRM that we talked before, that's exactly what I would expect now. Now you can build a sophisticated CRM and it integrates with your Notion calendar and with Notion Mail, and then you see the activity. Let me guess, it's probably not that.
For hardcore Notion users, I'm sure this was super exciting, but once again, there's a lot more to the story. The reality is Notion acquired Skiff, which is a privacy-focused email client. They killed off the one feature that made Skiff, the privacy features. Gone. Who did that upset? About 2 million people. You see, everyone that was using Skiff was using it because of the end-to-end encrypted emails, calendar events, and documents.
Unbelievable.
And what did Notion do? They killed off end-to-end encryption and went and integrated it with Gmail and Google Workspace. I don't know if you know about them, but they're kind of the complete opposite of privacy-focused. I feel bad because I'm like, I actually like Google. Like, this isn't shade at Google. This is just shade at the people that were using Skiff that now are being let down by Notion because Notion missed the plot. They lost the plot. Notion gave Skiff users a whopping 12 months heads up to find a new privacy-focused email client, migrate all of their data off of them. Good luck. Not to mention, from what we've seen, Notion Mal is actually quite confusing to use because, of course, Notion is trying to integrate their databases into it. At the end of the day, there are much better alternatives than Notion Mal. Don't fall for the trap. Take Superhuman, for example. So we've been using it for the past 5 to 6.
Amen. Superhuman is amazing. And that's again where people say, well, I already pay so much for all these tools. And Superhuman is now, I don't know, at $40 per month. I'm not even sure how much it is in the meantime. However, you always have to ask yourself, whenever you complain about paying for a tool, if you're paying for a tool, even $40 a month, and it saves you hours per day, bursting through your inbox and get inbox zero every day, thanks to shortcuts and all the things, and you don't get the point how much time you save, then make the calculation. If you're a student, sorry about that, you probably don't need this. But if you're a busy professional and every minute counts in a day, because it is real money that you're leaving on the table the moment you have to do work about work, then the calculation is very easy.
6 years, and it was an email client that was built specifically for professionals. With Superhuman, I don't dread email. I get a lot of it, and it just helps me get through it quicker.
Absolutely.
If you want to get through your inbox faster, use Superhuman. If you want to figure out how Notion is, again, reinventing Mal because they're integrating databases into a tool that they didn't even build themselves, you can give Notion Mal a shot, but only if you're using Google, because if you're using Outlook, that's not supported yet. So before you give Notion more of your time, consider for a second, Notion is a VC-backed business, and they've done a really good job at growing their market share.
Yeah, that's the problem. Venture capital. And let's see how long Notion will sustain that until they become so diluted when it comes to what they actually are with their tool until they crumble. But they're so big. Well, we saw it with Evernote. We thought it's going down. Somebody bought it and they now keep building it back up. Things like this can happen. But seeing here Notion and 2 other apps, that says it all. If they integrate Notion calendar and email, it should be still just one application. If it is the one application for everything. So that's my central hub where I go in there, access my emails, going into the calendar. These things would make much more sense to have there, to really have the tool for everything and not something scattered like this where you just in fact using other tools with a rebranding.
They're not necessarily building the best product for their users. They tell a very compelling story.
Exactly.
Don't believe us? Okay. The founder of Notion himself, in an interview with Forbes, was saying that people do not want to build software. So what do? They're sugarcoating the broccoli.
Most people don't want to create software. Nobody wake up tomorrow and say, hey, I want to create my own project management tool. People want to solve the problem in front of them. Use the off-the-shelf software. Maybe tinker that a little bit down the road. So we have to disguise Notion as the general purpose productivity software, almost sugarcoat the broccoli a little bit.
Millions of users are starting to wake up to the fact that Notion isn't the answer to productivity. It's all an illusion.
Look, Dad! Now I can build everything!
Okay, I'm waiting for the punchline.
But if you want to learn about one tool that actually makes our business significantly more productive and how it helps us get our tasks done faster, check out this video where we're going to talk through its most powerful features.
I will definitely check out this video next because it says the new Motion. So I'm curious what has changed since I last used it. And I'm curious about you guys. What are your thoughts about Notion? Go into the comments below and let us know. And make sure to go over to Efficient App to that channel because I love their videos and how they approach productivity tools. That's really how you dive into the tools with an understanding about the ups and downs and how people will apply these tools. So guys, Alex, Andrea, thanks very much. I keep following you guys. If you want to rewatch the whole video without me babbling in between, I put the link in the description below as well. If you have any other video I should react to, also feel free to put in the comments below. I'm happy to check it out. I catch you guys up next time.